Hey everyone, and welcome back to the TopSoil Podcast. My name is Mitchell Hora. I'm the founder and CEO here at Continuum Ag. Really excited about this 5-part mini-series that we put together for you. It's called the CI Effect. We've been working on carbon intensity a lot. There's a lot of questions. And in this 5-part mini-series, we really dig into the details. This series is made from farmers and made for farmers. I sit down with Chad Scebold. He's a 8th generation farmer. He's also our director of sales here at Continuum Ag. And we really dig into a lot of the nitty gritty about how farmers can win big with carbon intensity. We are really excited about bringing this to the market and just completely sold that it is the future. And we want you to be up on it from the very beginning. So first episode here in the mini series, Chad and I are going to talk about this new buzzword and really my favorite new thing to talk about. All the ins and outs here about carbon intensity. Enjoy.
Hey, super excited to be here today with Mitch Hora, Continuum Ag. Hey, we're going to dial in kind of 5-part mini-series around carbon intensity and everything you might need to know or have heard in space, and Mitch is going to help us out today.
That's right, all the details. And Chad's been having a lot of conversation with all you guys about what the heck is going on here with this carbon intensity thing. Obviously, we're very much at the tip of the spear and just want to put together this quick kind of mini-series, really get into the nuts and bolts. So absolutely excited to dig in. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get it, buddy. Hey, so I think a lot of what's going on in the space right now is if you've heard about it, you know something about it, or at least you pretend like you do, right, in the space if you're a producer. But, maybe let's start from the very top and we start talking about who created carbon intensity. What is carbon intensity high level?
Yeah, carbon intensity is essentially the carbon footprint per bushel or per unit of outcome. It's not a new thing. Carbon intensity has been a key driver within the fuel space for a number of years. And that's why the units that we use are in terms of per megajoule.
Sure.
The score is grams of CO2 equivalents per megajoule. And it's because it comes from the fuel space. But it's been around for a long time. This is a U.S. Department of Energy thing.
Yeah. So here, I'm going to dumb it down, right? It's the amount of energy to produce 1 bushel of corn.
Think of it as here's all of those inputs and your emissions divided by your bushels that you got coming out.
Sure.
You got all these things that going in. You got your fertilizer going in, your diesel fuel that you use, your pesticides that you use. All these inputs, they have a carbon footprint. You divide that carbon footprint by the bushels you produce. Thus, instead of looking at it as my carbon footprint per acre, it's my carbon footprint per bushel.
Money. I like it. So I guess, why is it important, right? So we hear it, we kind of know there's a little bit of a buzz out there, but like, why is it important to me as a farmer, right? Like I get that the ethanol facilities or the bio, right? The biofuel folks are talking about it, but how is it important to me as a producer?
So biofuel is really the driver here, at least as it exists today. And the reason the biofuel is the driver is because these tax credits, we're going to get into that later. But as farmers, we are part of the carbon footprint of the biofuel company or whoever we're selling our grain to.
Makes sense.
We're part of their scope 3 carbon footprint in carbon speak. But ultimately, that grain buyer needs to know the carbon footprint coming from us on the farm.
Sure.
And we can tell them that carbon footprint via the carbon intensity score. That way, there's a uniform unit of measure, and they can plug that into their larger calculation.
And listen, I think, speaking for the generic farmer out there like myself, right? Carbon can be a scary word, right? In the space. But I think when you start talking about different scopes and different things that maybe has confused the market a bit, I think the cool thing around carbon intensity, at least from what I understand at this point, is it's a simplification of how do we actually look at things and then measure, right?
That's what I like. It's basically that holistic score. I've been in the carbon space since like 2019, and the whole time I'm like, I just need to know what is my farm's actual carbon footprint. So many of these carbon programs in the past have been about the change of practice and basically paying you to check the box. This is just saying, hey, what's your real score? What's your real footprint? And that footprint goes with your bushel into the supply chain. It's just a way for us to tell our story. What I always preach to so many of these like sustainability companies and stuff is I say, we need farmers to have a scoreboard and a transparent point system and pay people based on scoring points. And I know that that'll work because today the scoreboard is the yield monitor and the point system is the bushel, and we get paid based on the bushels.
That's right.
And it's driven this multi-billion-dollar, marketplace, of course. And that is the measuring stick, is yield. For the first time, we finally have something else that we can get paid for.
Right. And I think that's what excites me. And that's kind of like when I look at the overarching theme of where we're at today as an industry, everybody has data, right? Everybody uses data in their own little operation the way they want to, or they don't, right? And I think with CI scoring, I guess when you look at being able to bring an additional value to what producers are doing today, I mean, look at all the precision technology that captures everything we do today, right? So, like, carbon intensity with some of the different measuring, the MMRV, right? The ways to be able to measure those. Maybe talk a little bit about the overarching theme of how they're measuring, right? What is the governmental tool, or what is that?
MMRV stands for measuring, monitoring, reporting, and verification. It's part of where we fit in at Continuum Ag. It's basically the enabling parties, to simplify. Within carbon intensity, this is just an equation about what are your farming practices, and the Department of Energy has developed a tool called GREET that spits out your score. In other carbon things, there's been soil sampling and been all this different rigmarole, and everyone's like, how the heck do we measure carbon? And it's been such an abstract thing. Now with carbon intensity, all that it takes is what are your farming practices, and we run the score. Done deal. Dude, and it's Department of Energy. It's so much easier. You can have your score in just a couple minutes and done. You don't even it's so much more simple.
What is the easy button, right? What is the easy button? And I think if you look at the easy button, is how do you standardize it to make it relevant to me, but make it easy for me, right? And I think that GREET model sounds like it's complicated, but with Continuum,
so much easier.
Maybe using the tool TopSoil, right?
So our role with Continuum Ag is we have our software called TopSoil, where we have simplified getting your carbon intensity score to be under a 10-minute process. And just knowing where you are, just knowing what the heck is your score, back to the concept and stuff here, that we finally have that scoreboard number. TopSoil is the scoreboard, and the GREET model is the transparent equation that we've reverse engineered to show you exactly what your score is and exactly how to improve your score. And now with these tax credits, you get paid for scoring points.
That's the next session, right?
That's the next session, and it's going to be beyond carbon in the future, okay? So I also don't want to just focus on carbon here, but it's just that somebody else is setting the precedent here. We didn't decide what we're going to get paid on. Right. We might have chose differently. Sure. Here's a score number called carbon intensity. In the future, it might be biodiversity, it might be water. There's all kinds of different stuff. Today, farmers need to know what is their carbon intensity score, because the next guy needs to know what your score is. And if we don't have our actual score, they have to use the default.
Yep.
And the default's not good.
I'm going to on you here for a minute, because I think we jab at each other every once in a while about it is fall season. We've got some really fun football, volleyball for those that are in that, softball, right? Specifically with our sport of football in the state of Iowa, there's a lot of different things in our neighboring states, right? But when you look at scoring in general, maybe one of our teams scores more than another, right? We won't talk about that. But when you look at scoring, it's actually better to score less when you talk about CI scoring than scoring high. So, right? So maybe talk a little bit about that high level scoring. Talk about the lower the score, the better.
Yeah, the Hawkeyes would be crushing it here. That low score, there we go. But yeah, so the average carbon intensity score of a bushel of corn in the country has a carbon intensity score of 29.1. Okay. That's the baseline. If you don't have a number, you're the default, 29.1. The lower your score, the lower your overall footprint per bushel. If you have a score of 0, that means essentially you're carbon neutral. If your score is negative, that means you're carbon negative. So every bushel that you produce, it actually put more carbon in the ground than what it released into the atmosphere. And that's what these companies want.
Gotcha.
So carbon negative, meaning I use less carbon. I'm building carbon in my system. I'm pulling down more carbon than what I emit.
So the lower your score, the more advantageous for your farm. I like it. I think that's a great segue to get into the next version of what we're going to talk about here. And again, this 5-part mini series, we're going to talk everything carbon intensity today. Mitch Hora, Chad Scebold, let's get it.